Welcome back, everyone, to Data Science for Everyone. Today we're going to be talking about ethnography. Let's get started. So, ethnography refers to the research method and the research output. Ethnography is the process of engagement and the written account of that engagement. The most common use of ethnographic research focuses on the interpretations of behavior and the specific events in everyday lives of individuals. The primary data collection technique is participant observation. Although other methods of collecting information concerning the context are often used, an ethnographic study begins with no a priori assumptions. The researcher seeks to explore, and although the research will have a focus, the theoretical framework acts as a cognitive signpost rather than controlling the direction of the investigation. Ethnography uses descriptive narratives to analyze and present the findings from the investigation. The purpose is to build theory by describing situations as they are and presenting patterns within a context. Conducting an ethnographic study may, on the surface, appear to be very similar to a case study, but it is to the extent to which the researcher is immersed in the context that it is the real and most obvious difference. The focus of an ethnography is to describe and interpret a cultural or social group, whereas the focus of a case study is to develop an in-depth analysis of a single case. A case study site is usually visited at regular intervals to engage in data collection that can be largely predefined, whereas ethnography depends on prolonged engagement within that context. The term interpretive was used to describe the data collection, analysis, theory, development process within case study research. Here, that intention of or cyclical process is taken even further. There are no defining lines between collecting data, analyzing data, reflecting and interpreting and writing. Uh, Generating theory is not the goal of ethnographic study, although the theory building may result on some occasions. There are several components of ethnographic study. Ethnography relies on the following components: the research question, prolonged field work, researcher as an instrument, participative engagement with the study population, multiple perspectives, diverse data collection, cycle of theory building, and descriptive storytelling. A research question. It is generally accepted that all research should begin with a good research question, but ethnography rarely conforms to this norm. The research question usually changes during the course of an ethnographic study. We're going to want to know one thing, and as our knowledge of that context deepens, our focus often shifts. Therefore, it is useful to begin with an interest than with a rigid question. The term fieldwork in ethnography is used for two types of engagement in the field: micro and macro environments. The macro environment of engagement is used to describe an investigation into the background and context of an environment before entering the field at a micro level where the local community is investigated. It is essential in ethnographic research that the researcher is the primary instrument of the research, and this is recommended in case study research. Ethnography combines the individual research participant, the researcher as a research instrument, and the qualitative data collection techniques in a collaborative process of interpreting data and using that interpretation to present the description of the context to tell the story. It is human experience and situations that are the subject of ethnography. Therefore, a human as instrument is the only instrument which is flexible enough to capture the complexity, subtlety, and constantly changing situation which is the human experience. It is important to remember that data collection in ethnographic research is also about participation. You are involved in the context and observing from that inside place, not on from the wings. Gaining entry to the field site is a key issue here. Being accepted into the existing social context relies heavily on identifying an appropriate gatekeeper who will allow you access to the community and has sufficient respect and trust to give credibility to your presence within that community. A strong recommendation and introduction strengthen the field worker's capacity to work in a community and thus improve the quality of the data. Once you are in, you must not be surprised if occasionally the tables are turned. People are as likely to ask you questions as you are to ask them. So be prepared to answer them as truthfully as you can. Being evasive and mysterious can seriously damage your rapport that you have established. Ethnography is concerned with people and everyday lives. It is important for everyone wishing to engage in this type of research that everyday lives are also included in multiple realities. Insiders as well as outsiders have multiple views of context. The fundamental task of this method is to accumulate as many perspectives as possible within the setting. This does not mean that you should focus on a few key informants and tell a story from the viewpoints of these individuals, but you should provide a holistic picture of the setting. That means looking at the picture from as many angles that are available to you in that context. Ethnography is a method of research which includes as many options of collecting data as being imagined and are justifiable. The primary technique for data collection in this method is that of participant observation. The ethnographer collects data from within the setting in whatever way presents itself and can be justified as credible and ethical. Investigation of the macroeconomic or the macro environment is likely to include documentary analysis, interviews, and observations in order to establish context. Analysis and theory generation in ethnography is not something that happens once the data has all been collected, as with the case study. It is an iterative process, even more so in this type of research. Gathering data is followed almost immediately by analyzing that data in relation to itself or to the ever-increasing body of knowledge that is being accumulated. As each new element is gathered, it is given a tentative place in the emerging theory as the researcher reflects on what is already known, what has been newly acquired, and what remains a mystery but needs to be explored. Grounded theory, the practice of developing other theories that emerge from observing a group. It is a typical approach to the analysis and interpretation of ethnographic research. The aim is not to create universal laws, but localized theory relating to the specific phenomenon. Theory emerges from local sites and the background analysis of the context. This adds to theory from other sites and other researchers, and theory building continues as an ever-increasing understanding of the concepts by repeated in-depth exploration. Ethnographic writing is both a science and an art. Just as interviewing is both a science in terms of systematic procedure and art is in terms of an individual development of their own artistic strategy for conducting an interview. Ethnographers rely on thick descriptions to tell the story of their investigation and share their findings with their audience. The final story, as it is presented to the reader, will reflect the researcher's own personal interpretation of the individual and shared realities of the study. Written accounts will reflect your culture, interests, and training and purpose. Virtual ethnography. There exist real communities in cyberspace is becoming more increasing and more common. There are a minimum of 4 conditions that must exist before a cyber community based environment can be termed a community. A virtual public space containing a significant interpretive group, computer-mediated communication, a variety of communicators, a minimum level of stable membership, and a minimum level of interactivity. If you guys like this video, please comment, subscribe, and hit that like button, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.